Okay, we should be live. I hope everyone is well and doing okay. Just a general chit chat. Nothing too major, just some observations, I suppose. A little bit of a vlog or blog diary um, while it's semi fresh and I don't know, just keeping track of things, keeping account of events. It seems like 2023 is flying by. Slow down, 2023. I want to savor the moments. Um, Well, maybe my memory is getting a bit hazy. I found out some things. I take statin, and one of the side effects apparently um, is it can mess around with your brain. I don't know. Does it show? um, but I think another side effect is fatigue or feeling tired or something along those sort of lines, and that is something. Um, Maybe I am. I do feel kind of tired, a bit drained. Maybe I need a holiday. Um, the kid deserves one. I suppose I deserve one. It's been like over 10 years or something like that. Good afternoon, Iridium Kush. It must be afternoon for you. You're about 5 hours. Well, good evening. Evening. I know you're doing a stream later. Don't worry, I'll be finished way before you have your stream. But unfortunately, I don't think I'll be there in attendance. I'll probably be sleeping. I've been trying to get. Well, it's been pretty. I thought. See, I get my tax return in January, so I'm always kind of a bit stressed out because I got it looming overhead, and then I feel relieved in February because that headache is out the way. And then normally in February I have the car's MOT, and typically, since I've had the car, it's passed every MOT without me having to do much effort um, until this year, where uh, it was already assumed this is going to fail because you had that steering problem. Um, so the MOT has now been shifted to March. So, as some of you already know, I've been very car focused in the last couple of weeks, and it's been a rewarding thing. It's kept me busy. It's been a refreshing break from getting involved with some of these political, social, economic discussions and just getting on with blokey, manly kind of stuff where all of that is irrelevant because the job is at hand. There is no room for diversity or progressiveness when it comes to fixing mechanical issues. It's problem solving and rewarding. So I've been having a good time with the car. Um, so a quick little update on the vehicle. It has now had the headlight that was getting, what's the right term when it's getting UV exposure where it's going yellowish. Well, that's now been polished out. Not quite crystal clear, but good enough I think to pass the MOT, and that is tomorrow, by the way. So tomorrow I will get the verdict whether or not it passes or fails. Um, but I think the headlight is good enough to get the job done. Now I need to kind of like match it up with the rest of the plastic front. Like you got the two headlights, but there's this clear part in between, which I'm not really fond of on my car. Like the FN2 has a grill. I prefer a grill look, but unfortunately this has kind of makes it look like Geordie from Star Trek. His visor. It's just a visor that goes right across. Well, so at the moment it looks a bit funny because the middle part between, like a unibrow, in between is still got the yellow haze, but at least the headlights are functionable or whatever, compliant. So that's been done um, in the rain. Um the screen wash issue, I took away the cowl. I had a look at the pipes. The pipe was a pain in the. I thought this was just a plug and play, but it had this clip on there that would ping. And if you're not careful, it'll ping and disappear. And if you lose it, you're not going to be able to reconnect these pipes. You have to find some other way of connecting them. Um, But I was messing around with that, put it back together. Somehow, I don't know if there was a blockage, it seemed to semi-resolve the issue. So now the screen wash, the jets, the nozzles, the mist, the spray, whatever you want to call it, the golden shower or the whatever, it isn't, what would you say, a weak stream. It isn't dribbling out as it was before, but it's not quite fully blasting the windscreen either. It's sort of it's better than it was, but not 100% the way it was, if that makes sense. So again, it should pass the MOT. So for now, I'm not in a rush to do that one. The interior has generally been put back together. I've given the car a bit of a clean, pumped up the tires, and I've had a look at the C brake caliper, a little closer inspection, and I'm looking at the what would you call where you've got the brake pads that sit on the metal clips that are part of the carrier bracket. Those metal clips aren't really seated very well. So I'm wondering if I give those a clean, will that free up the brake? So there's a few different silly bits you could mess with, a little bit of trial and error, see where there's a fault. Maybe the whole thing is actually seized up. But it's making me do a little bit of girly window shopping. So I've been perusing eBay quite a bit, looking at, should I get a refurbishing kit? Should I go as far as maybe just replacing the caliper altogether, because there could be a problem with the bleed screw, and do I want all this headache or what? So a little bit indecisive. I can't quite make up my mind, but it's another job that is being planned out. And while I was at it, I've actually got a list of like about 14 different things I want to get around to doing at some point. The vinyl, where it's been bubbling, I've been noticing not only has it been bubbling, but the edging is atrocious. So it's making me think, should I just, for at least this year, maybe try and just tidy it up a bit, but perhaps by next year, re-vinyl the entire car. I don't know. But I feel it's a all right job or whatever to do, but it's just a bit how would you say, kind of like getting someone into a headlock and making them tap out. It's like, quit it, damn it, comply. just adhere to the cert, because that's the thing, because it's been bubbling and not very well put on. Rainwater, like muck, has been getting behind it. So even though I've been flattening it out as best you can see, a little bit of grain and grit underneath it. It's not the best of the best, but it had to be done because I was changing the number plate, and one of these bubbling areas was right next to the number plate. So I was like, well, I'm going to have to flatten that, at least that part out, so I can get this number plate attached properly. Now, before it wasn't like that, even though it was bubbling, because it was a smooth transition to the non-observant person, they might not even notice. But because I've been like following the bodywork lines and making it adhere to the surface better, it's beginning to crease. There's a few little wrinkles here and there. Those can be exercised out. It's just a matter of patience and hopefully the tackiness, the adhesion hasn't lost its like qualities or adherence, the stickiness. And this is where I'm having issues with the dirt and grime getting underneath it. So it's making me think maybe I need to pull out some of these light units so that I can wrap it around better and do a more professional job. But obviously vinyl isn't part of the MOT, so these will be after tomorrow plans, and when I can, got time. I realize I have, because I've been spending so much time on cars, I've been a little bit neglectful in the psychological matters, the philosophy sort of topic, the deep dives, and contributing in that regard. Let me just give out a quick shout outs. I already said hi to Iridium. Hi Shadrach, D Man. Good evening, gentlemen, and David. Good evening, Silver Bullets. You're here. Great. Anyone else? So, yeah, let's get a tune going. Relax. A little calm one. Let me quickly think. Conjure up some talking points to bring up. There have been some observations I've noticed. A couple of them kind of interesting and amusing. So we'll have a little track, and then we'll put a picture up, and we'll carry on. So share the screen. This is such a palaver sometimes. I don't know. Is it really worth it? Well, I'm doing it now. So maybe if I actually paid a subscription or what one is it I saw that I thought was maybe this one. A little bit of a somber one. So a bit of a strange one. It was kind of enough of that. It was it was kind of mellow, but then it had some strange, like creepy stuff going on. Well, whatever. So let's get a background picture up here. Something so you don't have to stare at my derpy face. So I'll just quickly a little philosophical point about the car, which made me also realize I was going through I was compiling my list of jobs to do, and I was thinking, damn, I have been very lazy. No wonder the car has got a lengthy list of to dos, because I haven't bothered doing anything. And I was wondering, why is that? Because when I had my previous car, I was kind of on top of things. And I think it made me realize, because the transition to this more modern vehicle, like my previous one was a Civic 95, this is a 2007, so there's quite a big gap. And I remember my initial being overwhelmed by how compact and crowded and just like plastic everywhere. I just like, oh man, this is a headache. That's why I ended up calling the car Pandora. My previous car was very spacious, very easily accessible, um, so it was pretty straightforward to understand. And I think maybe that's the reason why. But as I've been looking things up, becoming more familiar with it, for a time it was a bit of a puzzle because I was thinking, how am I supposed to change the spark plugs? Because there's 8 of them and 4 of them are inaccessible. And I couldn't find any direct video that would tell me until you start finding the right kind of links and the connections, and it starts to become evident how to do it. And it's like, now I understand. And now that I understand, it's not as daunting. So we can branch out here and step away from cars and just talk about the issue of fear and apprehension and think of daunting and hesitation. And when things are unknown, you have a tendency to, if you can avoid it, to do so. And the consequence of such things is you become neglectful, and it'll, you're going to have to face it sooner or later. And if you leave it too long, obviously the situation will become far worse. Or, I mean, if you're fortunate enough, you know, um, it's a sort of double-edged sword. It hasn't gotten to a bad state, but it's now a time-consuming situation because, like I was saying earlier, I've been spending the last couple of weeks slash getting to a month now just being heavily car focused. So it has its pros and cons. And taking that insight or information and looking into the future, I can already see it like I'm going to have to invest. Um, like it sounds like it could be a time wasted. Like I'm going to have to invest a large part of the summer doing mechanical stuff, but it's not like it's stuff that I don't want to be doing. It's it's somewhat fun. It's exercise, it's practice, it's exercising skills, it's being one with yourself. The kid is floating around, so she's picking up some pointers here and there. Um, so yeah, I mean, it sounds a little bit silly making it philosophical, but I think it's also good sometimes to have real life or real world examples you can connect these life lessons or build these life lessons into. So then it becomes everyday practice, not something that you have to necessarily sit down in a lecture hall and study it in a academic sort of way. You can um, you can learn through everyday um, what could be for some silly task or trivial task or mundane things, but it reminds me of, I can't remember what it might have been, a Karate Kid movie, the one with Will Smith's son in it, where you got Jackie Chan, and I think he says like he's talking about kung fu, and he basically says that kung fu is in every part of life. Everything you do is kung fu. You go wash your dishes, you're exercising your kung fu. You go cook dinner, you exercise, you're practicing your kung fu. You have a bath, you're drying yourself, you put your clothes on, you're practicing the motions of kung fu. Um, so in this sort of way, um, philosophy, being present in mind, self-soothing, being in connecting to your inner self and in contact and in being in alignment and all this sort of stuff, being um, to have resonance within you, and all that sort of hippy dippy sort of stuff. It becomes subconsciously ingrained and cultivated. It becomes your mannerisms, it becomes your demeanor, and not something, and it becomes much more naturally expressed and incorporated in the fibers of your soul. So there's a real sort of deep enrichment going on, which out from the outside perspective you may not necessarily see it, but it accumulates and builds a strength in character. It builds that resolve. It builds that resilience, and it's not something that has to be particularly forced out of someone or painstakingly crafted, which has that kind of artificiality about it, which slips into what the school way of approach of doing things, which is we're going to tell you to have confidence. And I have a real gripe about um, this form of air quote like healing, recovery, survivor, empath type hippy dippy love, spirit, and light, virtue signaling sort of way about things. It's like most people are aware that it's not uncommon for someone to have low self-esteem, have self-doubt, little self-worth, a lack in confidence, and so on. And well, not we necessarily, but society, or frankly, if I just be blind to say charlatans, will come along and say, "Don't worry." It's like PUA style stuff. Don't worry, I could teach you how to have game. Don't worry, I could tell you how to have confidence. I can make you confident. I can make you have I will give you self-esteem. It's like that's not how it works. You're actually making things worse, because you're teaching someone how to become more reliant on you. How, instead of putting them on their own 2 feet and telling them to solve their own problems, you're basically wiping their backside for them, and they're supposed to thank you for that. This is abusive, really. It's disrespectful, because this isn't how you would parent, at least in my opinion. I mean, you do you, boo. That's how you want to do things. But if you're solving people's problems for them, then don't be surprised if that's what they're going to be expecting you to do from now on. And what's going to happen when you're not there to do that? They're going to be in the deep end. So, not to sound too cruel, but better that they learn how to do things for themselves sooner, rather than have this reality crash, or this fantasy um, fall apart, this false sense of security to fall apart. So when the school is saying, like, we want to embed, and this is their words, to embed um, behaviors such as confidence, I immediately think, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and you're going to make it worse. Because instead of actually teaching or embedding, I don't know what you mean by embedding, maybe brainwash, um, confidence, what you're telling these children is to have arrogance, is to be blasé about it. And I mean, they're young minds, they have no idea of confidence. I don't know if I already mentioned this in a previous stream, but I don't see confidence as a behavior. If I'm telling you to be more confident, to act more confidently, then I'm telling you to put on a front, to perform, to be inauthentic. If you're someone with a lacking has a lack of confidence, or a lack of self-esteem, self-belief, conviction, and things like that, confidence isn't really the issue here. It's your fear. It's the anxiety that is holding you back. And so I'm of the belief, you don't go chasing confidence. You don't tell someone, put confidence in front of you and try and be like that. Instead, I believe confidence is behind you. Confidence follows you. You bring confidence along for the ride, not the other way around. You are not going to be dragged along by some kind of aura of confidence, this shield to protect you, because you don't have that within you. I don't know if that makes sense. It's just my opinion about it, or whatever. Um, so when someone is acting confidently, authentically, then it's not really it's not a facade. They're just being authentic. They're being honest. They're being themselves, and this is what would appear as someone who is confident. But if I'm having to tell you to be more confident, the whole frame or something like this, then I'm telling you to be someone that you're not. Now, how is that building confidence? That is lowering their self-esteem. That is telling someone you won't be accepted for who you are. I need you to pretend to be confident because you seem like a nervous wreck. Now, instead of addressing why it is you're a nervous wreck, I'm saying disregard that, dissociate from your anxiety, bury those fears, and pretend they don't exist, and instead portray something inauthentic to the world to fool other people into thinking that you are confident. And in that way, don't worry, you'll be accepted then. Well, it's a load of bollocks. Sorry, pardon the language, but it just shows you that it's all being, the important stuff is being pushed away, and it's going to be a problem later on. Remember what I was saying about cars and neglect and how these issues can become serious. I mean, in terms of vehicles, it could be safety hazards. So you could say, you put your fear, you disregard your fears and dissociate from the problems that you should be addressing. Not only is it not going to be good for you, it could be disastrous. It could be fatalistic if we want to be extreme about it. Um, and instead, you're going to pretend to be confident anyway. So that's a little rant there about this whole idea of confidence. I don't believe confidence is a behavior. I think it might be a characteristic as a byproduct of authenticity. So it comes from the experience, it comes from practice, it comes from the a period of time. Because with children, you might think, oh, they're very confident in the beginning. So what happened to them? It's not that they lost confidence. It's more of a case that they learned how to they learned to have fear. They learned to shut things down and not be their authentic self. So as a sacrifice to that, the fear became more important to them than living authentically. So if you eliminate these, or not eliminate, but if you address this component of fear and anxiety and being scared and things like that, then the confidence will naturally express itself without any particular effort having to be directed towards it. You don't have to have a class and say to kids, all right, kids, we're going to practice having confidence today. Don't be afraid. It's like, that's not what's going to help them. That's going to make it worse for them because you're minimizing the significance. It might not be important to you. You might think, oh, they're scared of the dark. Isn't that silly? But to the kid, it's very, very serious. And you ridiculing it as if it's like, um, you know, uh, juvenile, or they're being a baby about it. You're putting, not only are you laughing at things that they take seriously, but you're laughing at them as well. So it's, and these are teachers, and then they talk about how they want to get an emotional psychologist. It's like, so if you are aware that you need an emotional psychologist, what the hell are you doing trying to teach mental health? You're clearly not qualified for it, and you're playing with fire. And at this point, you need more than an educational psychologist. You're going to need, well, I'm not sure what you need, but you're going to need some critical thinking at the minimum. Don't mind your educational psychologist. They're going to be swamped and overwhelmed by it all. So a bit of a rant there. Now, I had a meeting today with the autism specialist in regards to my kid. And this lady, although, yes, she demonstrates the nuances that are overlooked, which I appreciated greatly. It's like, someone actually does know to a large degree what they're talking about. There was this lecturing tone, this authoritarian vibe. It was an online. I was in the presence of another teacher in I was this meeting was at the school, but with the specialist was online, so it was that was how it. So I was in a teacher's office with a teacher, um, with this specialist on screen. And so the three of us are having this meeting. And even this teacher was glancing over at me as if me and this teacher were being told, as if we were the children, and being lectured by this specialist on how things should go. And although on paper or your subject matter wise, I would agree with her. Like structure is important. A timetable would be important for autistic people. They're very visually based. At the same time, I was like, yeah, but this specialist is very robotic. She doesn't seem to appreciate that life isn't like that. Yes, it might make things more easy for my daughter. Like they're talking about, because the vocabulary and articulation might not be there to be able to express how you feel. It might be easier for her to say, I'm in the red zone, like as if I'm angry, I'm in the red zone, and when I'm calmer, I'm in the blue zone. If I'm feeling okay, I'm in the green zone. And I'm like, yeah, so like a traffic light system. I'm like, yeah. I mean, um, that's cute and all, but like that's not going to really compute in the real world very well. I mean, yeah, people might understand, but if she can be able to express that, like, hey, listen, guys, like today, I'm pissed, I'm angry, I'm fuming, I'm angry. It's much better than saying, guys, I'm feeling red today. You'd be like, what the hell? I didn't know colors had. Well, I suppose there is a psychology behind colors and emotions, um, but it's not everyday sort of vocabulary. With autism, this is something I didn't really mention to her. Maybe another time I will. You get a situation called the double empathy problem, where it's one thing which shows you. See, you can learn a lot from studying. Like one of the good things I like about the Manosphere is when I first joined, there wasn't really much psychological. There was sort of like, but the terminologies, the dissection way of dealing with it wasn't so pronounced. But I've seen it over the last couple of years becoming more common knowledge or being practiced. So that's a good thing. I get a little bit worried that people skim the surface and use things a little bit out of context, or I mean, I was a bit guilty of that. We're talking about entropy, but still, it's nice that it shows that there is a need for this, for psychology. So I'm now suggesting that there are things in the autism sector that could also be brought into these discussions that we can also learn from. And I'm sure there'll be other areas of mental health, and other walks of life, which, if we spend a bit of time exploring, we can see things connecting, and it could be of further use. So this double empathy, which autistics experience quite a bit, shows us that empathy is a two-way street. It's no good you saying to me, oh, Billy, I have empathy. Your empathy will be useless if there is no exchange or back and forth. Like, you can't say to me, I can feel what you're feeling, if I deny you, if I do not allow you to have my feel. If I say, no, F off, these are my feelings, they're not yours, your empathy is no good here. You're not going to, you could try as you might want to feel how I feel. But I'll be like, no, the only way your empathy will be validated is if I allow you to cross that boundary and take my feelings away from me so that they become yours. So this shows you how empathy is really a two-way street. Um, so the autistic people suffer from a situation of double empathy. And just to explain a little bit about that in a kind of loose way, so the autistic person may have trouble expressing how they feel, and as a result, the recipient on the other end of it doesn't know how the autistic person feels because they can't express it. So it's a communication breakdown at both ends. Now, the person on the receiving end of this autistic person, because they don't understand, has a tendency to dismiss or ignore or because they don't understand, they don't feel like it's very important. And this can be very frustrating for the autistic person because they feel like they're not being heard or understood, and it makes them feel more and more isolated and things like that. So that is where they get a double empathy problem. There is also another, they call it a syndrome, but I think it's uh, I don't think it really is a syndrome. They call it Cassandra syndrome, and I'll need to look into that further. But from the quick overview of the Cassandra syndrome, apparently, I don't know what story it's from, but there's this chick called Cassandra, and she was cursed with being only able to tell the truth. The catch is that no one will believe you. Now, isn't that a bit of a pickle? So you can only tell the truth, but the caveat is that no one, it doesn't matter what you say, really, truth or not. Um, but it means that no one's going to live. Now, how many of us experience that in everyday life where you're telling people the truth and it's as if by curse they refuse to accept it, even though you're proving everything, you've got the evidence, you've got the facts, you've got the statistics, you've got argument after argument, you're bashing them around the head with it, you know, it just will not be accepted. There's adamant denial or rejection of reality. And to us, we're like, how can this be? This is preposterous. But now you've got a term here you can use, the Cassandra syndrome. So there's another one. Learn from the autism sector, which I think is very commonplace in our discussions we have or our encounters with the rest of society. And I think there's other ways we could describe that, you know, like denial, head in the sand, ostrich syndrome, you know, say it ain't so, you know, I will close my eyes and proof you aren't here, that kind of sort of thing. Um, so interesting stuff. Now, I think this is going to start now veer into the general subject matter of this conversation. So I've been having little encounters with, I mean, everyone has encounters with wider society anyway, but there's been a few interesting things, some observations. Um, Now, I had that meeting today. I've got another meeting tomorrow. Um, and there's quite a lot happening. Like, so the car is going in for the MOT tomorrow. It's also National Women's Day tomorrow. There's Book Day tomorrow. There's two people's birthdays tomorrow. uh, uh, yeah, so tomorrow's going to be a pretty hectic day. All really palaver, nothing major, no major headache. Let me just crack open. Hold on, let me just mute this. I don't think you want to hear me opening a can. Sorry, yeah, because that might have been a bit loud if I done it on the mic. Coffee's always going cold, so this time I got some 7 Up. might make me a bit gassy. So I've been managing to catch some of these teachers in passing, and I must. They give me that kind of deer in the headlight look because I suppose they're expecting just a pleasantries of good morning, how are you? Oh yeah, it's lovely weather, isn't it? And then straight away I'm like, so are you noticing the decay of societal integration? Yeah, and they're just like, what the hell? I'm like, yes, it's all falling apart. So they're probably a bit put. They're put off by some of the things, and they if you give me a chance to like, because I know time is of the essence, I'll be like, right, I think this is bad, I think that is bad, and I lay into them. Um, and what I notice is is that dissociation is they'll try and nitpick one particular point because everything is just it's like a tsunami drowning them, and they seem to believe that if they can pick at a certain point or fob me off. I don't know if you guys have that expression for placate to try and kowtow. Is that the right way of saying it? Over here in England, we take like I'm being fobbed off. I'm being uh, it's like it's like here, kid. Here's a quarter. Why don't you go buy yourself some bubble gum? Like get the f out of here, yo. Um, it's that kind of. It's a rude way of dismissing someone. But they seem to think that if they can pick at this little thing I'm saying, or one of the, that it will just eradicate the entire point that is being made. Um, and with their lack of awareness, they don't realize that I can see that this is defensive measures being implemented. They don't like what they're hearing. They don't know how to respond. They don't know how to digest and to take on board. So, they reply, if not with being like trying to fob me off or be rude or insultive, then maybe, oh, that sounds interesting. And that's a little keyword. If you hear someone saying like, oh, how interesting, then to me, that's a bit of a red flag. It means, to me, it's not like interesting, that's something for me to think about. It's more of a case of interesting, that's something I need to like damage control rectify. That is something that's going to need addressing to nullify the impending doom if I leave it out of check, or it's something that's going to need to be contained or controlled, or fundamentally you are going to be punished for having that so-called interesting thought because I don't like what you just said, and that's why it's interesting to me because it's caught my defense alert system. It's come up as a blip on my radar. Enemy. That is something I'm going to need to address or deal with at some point, or you know. Um, so there are those little encounters I've been having, and for me personally, it's given me a little bit of on the field experience, a little bit. So it's allowing me to test what I can say, how they respond, or it's not really respond, it's more react to it. It's laying out the minefield in front of me so I can be more astute at how to tippy toe around some of these obstacles, and um, you know be able to make progress without getting completely like you know, Billy, we don't like your tone. Why don't you go find a different school, or stay away? I'm going to get a restraining order against you. You know, so a little bit of infiltration, I suppose. How can I get past? How can I circumvent these defense systems without them being none the wiser in a way? Um, you know, at least so that I can penetrate deeper and really reveal the cracks in their veneer. And it reminds me of a situation I was having with one of these parents. And I know that they're a socialist, but for some reason I decided I'm not going to even ask you if you're a socialist. I'm just going to rant at you and tell you how wrong the socialists are. You know, so I'm just going to put you down without explicitly saying I'm going to put you down. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and treat you as if you're someone who is sane, as if you and I are on the same wavelength. But I'm going to basically shit on socialist ideas in your face. And because you're on your own, um, this person didn't want to challenge me. Uh, they they you know, like a little chihuahua or whatever, or not even like a chihuahua. They at least bark. But this person was being put in their place, um, and obviously they probably are a bit intimidated now, and um, probably going to be a bit careful of triggering me into a tirade or political um, jabberings. But at the same time, I think I think there's an element of trust there, even though he might be a bit intimidated. I think it's like that confidence thing earlier, where if I'm being authentic and telling you how I feel about something or my opinions, and I ain't mincing my words too much, and I'm cut and dry about it, I ain't BSing you, I'm being honest, then even if you don't like me, you can still trust me. So he, I think he has more trust in someone speaking from this point of view than maybe his own peers who, or like white knights or codependents, who will be telling white lies just to make you feel better. Oh, we're all in this together, and yeah, we hate the patriarchy and all this. I mean, I'm sure that's his general baseline, but I put him on the ropes without holding him. It's kind of a weird dance in a way, because I wasn't holding him accountable. I wasn't like saying to him, "You need to explain yourself and justify it." I was just saying, like, yeah, you know, it's kind of funny that I think a lot of these socialists are choosing this position because they don't seem to understand what it is really. If you ask them why is it you're a socialist, they start talking about capitalism, and it makes it sound like so because you see capitalism as this evil thing, by de facto, you choose socialism. However, when we break it down, you talk as if you share capitalist ideals. You believe in meritocracy. You believe people who work hard deserve um, to have achievements and recognition. You want to be rewarded for your hard work. You don't want to have to work for free. Um, you know you want to have a free market. You don't trust the government. And I'm thinking, so this doesn't make, if you are socialist, you can't be against it. Like the socialist wants like money distribution. So who's going to distribute? So government. So socialists generally want, they believe and trust the government. So how is it you're complaining about the government screwing you over and the elites and the ones in power when you yourselves want them to be in that position because you want them to spread out the wealth. So, which way is it really? Do you actually even understand what it is you're supporting here? And it's like, don't like you like a car, you like your iPhone, you like the internet. It wasn't socialism that brought any of this stuff around. It wasn't socialism that built the world. So, you know, what? How is this it making sense here? And even if these evil elite capitalistic monsters that you think everyone who is capitalistic is, even though you yourself uh, follow the principles of capitalism, um, do you not see that millions of people are supported? Like, think of the industries that are created. Excuse me, that's the 7 Up getting its revenge on me. Think of the industries, the families supported. You talk about wealth distribution. Is there not wealth distribution through capitalism? Um, and if you want these people who are higher earners to pay more tax because you hate them so much and you want them out of a job, then what about all the lives that are dependent, the families dependent on them? Um, what's going to happen to them? You know, so it's not an area of my expertise by no stretch of the words or the terms, but it just made me. Um, it gave me a little bit of an angle to approach to test the waters with my local community to see their resolve, to see their resilience, to see their confidence, and to see their like do they measure up, or however you want to sort of phrase it. Now it's not really very reassuring, but um, it helps to clarify. I mean, we already kind of know that a lot of people are cowardly as a result of this sort of stuff. They band together and they believe in the hive mind or unity and strength, because on their own they're feeble and weak, and they don't realize, like, united we stand and all this sort of stuff. We should rally together and protest. They don't, the lack of the self-awareness, don't realize that you are on display, showing how um, pitiful, how, like, I don't want to say pathetic, but like, um, how if on your own you wouldn't have the nerve to re, but when you band together, and now you re in chorus. Um, so suddenly now you've got a spine, and you think you're you know hot stuff or whatever. You the man when you've got all these people backing you up, but when you're on your own, no. And it makes you wonder, like, it's a bit annoying because it makes me feel like, don't tell me a asshole like me has to come along and give you the pimp hand, because I don't think I've got a pimp hand, but the way it looks around here, around these sort of parts of the streets, it's like I'm going to be smacking people left, right, and center at this point. you know, um, and like, some people would be proud or be thrilled at the idea. Like, yeah, I'm looking forward to bitch slapping some people. Um, but I come from a place of low self esteem originally. low confidence. It's from self-doubt, always thinking I was the one that's wrong. And it's still evident like today, like people like you try and speak up, and I'm sure many of you experience this as well, the Cassandra syndrome. You try and say something truthful and you get dismissed, you get ridiculed or vilified, you get isolated, you get outed, exiled, you get shamed, labeled, whatever it is, you get insulted. Um, and so, like, obviously, this is uh, it's rude, it's insulted, it's abusive to a large degree, and it's to chip away at your self confidence and your esteem and all these sort of things. Uh, so when someone gives me that kind of reaction to try and make me feel as though I'm the lunatic, I'm constantly like, I mean, that is, it works on me quite a bit because they can say something, and it's not until afterwards that I realize what the motherfucker did you say to me? Um, and I wish I was a bit quicker on the ball and I could have said something at the time to catch them out. But I mean, I suppose it's at least I realized after the event. But with practice, is what I'm saying. Like these encounters will sharpen, will refine. Like hopefully, the next time it happens, I'll catch it immediately and be like, I know what you just did there, and you just revealed your hand to me. Um, so I believe these it's kind of funny what we talk about cracks in the veneer. Um, I think there are. I'm pretty sure, confident most of you will agree with me. I think there are many cracks. There are microscopic cracks that we don't even realize are there. We can't see them very well. And it was a little bit like that when I was buffing the headlight on the car. As you're adding as you're going through the grades of grit or sandpaper, and then you're onto like the cutting compound and polishing compound. You're reviewing your work at each stage. Like, is it getting clearer? Is it clear? Is it? Oh, yes. But then each time you're looking closer and closer, and you're like, I can still see some scratches. So yes, it looks better, but on close inspection, you realize that this thing is scratched to hell. I'm going to need a buffing wheel. Doing it by hand isn't really going to do the job right. Um, eh, you know, and I think it's like the analogy with society is a little bit like that. It's like they're trying to buff out these cracks, hoping that no one will notice. But with close scrutiny, mm, you know, and I'm sure many of you will see that. And I think now that now it's been made a point of notice, like look, don't give them the psycho glare. Don't give them like the equivalent of the 1,000-yard stare, but the 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 death stare of persecution, but the inspector with the magnifying glass, like, let me just look you over. I can see right through you. But because it happens, doesn't it? Like, we're obviously, like, we're all human sort of thing. So there comes, like, it's hard to imagine someone is 100% delusional all the time, through and through, like, absolutely. Because if you think in that sort of way and you go out into the world and you're thinking, oh my God, you would probably send yourself crazy. So there's an element there where, you want to give people the benefit of the doubt. You want to try and be realistic and not say to yourself, everyone is absolutely off their rocker. You have a little bit of a slither of hope that maybe they're in denial. And so the truth is there somewhere if they were just a bit more honest. Or maybe they could be reached out to. Maybe they just need to be woken up and unplugged. So there's all these kind of factors. And like on a psychological level, to exercise logic and critical thinking throughout all the time is draining for yourself. You can't do it as much as you try and be logical. You will be exhausted by it. So we all need, as part of our self-care, to be able to just turn that logic off from time to time, so that we can just get on with things, and not have to, uh, like, well, maybe it's a bad example, like catastrophize. Like if you're going out to the shop to buy milk, you don't want to have to make it into this big ordeal. You just want to get on with it. So it's kind of like that. I'll just turn the logic down. If I encounter people, hello, how you doing? And so as a result, you you filter out some of the craziness for your own self-preservation. But on second thought, or on second glance, or with a closer inspection, you come to realize is that I don't know. It's hard to imagine life through their perspective, or through their eyes, or what they're having to experience. The kind of, like, we get annoyed and agitated with the mental gymnastics they want us to have to go through, but they seem to do it willingly and to the nth degree. It seems like they're perpetually doing mental gymnastics to try, like the squirrel brain is constantly trying to warp and twist the world they're interacting with so that it makes some kind of sense. And it seems as though every time they configure it in such a way that, okay, maybe we can have some coherence here, it's it's a fleeting, it's like the epiphany, it's a fleeting, like, experience. It's as soon as they got it, they've lost it again. And so it constantly, I mean, I don't know how they, if this is where it makes you wonder, like, maybe I'm like that as well. I'm constantly trying to wrap my head around things, but I don't know. Maybe we're all a little bit delusional in that sense. I don't know. I'm just rambling on and rabbiting now. So I'll quickly see how the chat is doing. How are you finding this conversation? It's just random. This is crazy. The cracks in what we're seeing. So in the news, they're talking about these 15, like in terms of the UK. Oh, I see Chris is here. Hey, Chris, I don't know if you guys are still, who's here and who's not. I don't know how far, how long, this is like 20 minutes ago. Jeez. Um, Tim's here. Good to see you, man. Rita Outlaws here. Good to see you too. Shinobi Wan. Good to see you. So we've got these 15-minute cities, and in a hopeful way of looking at things, from what I'm gathering, at least on the interwebs, it seems that more people are, air quotes, waking up, or they're having enough of it, or they're pushing back, or they are also seeing the cracks, and it's not quite making sense. So in the UK, I mean, I don't know how it's being replicated in America or other parts of the world, but we are seeing rapid policies trying to be introduced. We've got this ULEZ thing, ultra low emission zone. That was in central London. Now they're trying to make it the whole of London. They're saying it's to help make the air cleaner, to save lives. But we all know this is a load of BS, and it's about control and money, essentially. They're coming out with statistics saying 1 in 5 cars are, like, well, put it the other way around. 4 out of 5 cars are already, they're modern vehicles, so they already ULEZ exempt. They already qualify. So only that leaves 1 in 5 cars that would be penalized by this ultra low emission zone. They don't meet the criteria of not polluting. But it doesn't, now logically, as you go through this, you start realizing it doesn't. So what you're saying is that if you want to drive around in these zones, you have to pay. So if you pay the penalty, well, the fine, to go into the with your polluting car, are you saying I can pollute the area as much as? So can I take the muffler off my vehicle if I am willing to pay? And is that necessarily going to kill someone? Are you saying that I'm a murderer because I'm driving around with my polluting car? Are you saying that um, that the reason for these deaths is attributed to to these vehicles? And so, if we have this, are we going to say, are we actually going to save lives here, or what? So, in the recent years, we've had the lowering of the uh, top speed or whatever. Like in the side streets, you used to be able to drive 30 miles an hour. Now it's 20 miles an hour, and I call this complacency speed. And I see it more dangerous than driving at 30 because, well, you got tailgaters, you get people who are like, I'm trying to stick to the law, but people are flying past, they're overtaking, and these are narrow, windy streets. So they're probably driving in excess of 30. I mean, at least before they're driving 30. Now they're probably driving like 35, 40 to overtake your slow backside. And they're on the wrong side of the street, obviously, when they're overtaking. You've got the highway code changes where people are allowed to walk out in front of you and you have to stop and all this sort of stuff. Cyclists now have priority. It gets very confusing and difficult to keep up with it. They're now trying to introduce this idea of, see, I was talking about the MOT before, right? They're now thinking of doing this biannual. So every 6 months you would have an MOT done, and to make cars more and more safer. This doesn't make sense, because are you saying that modern vehicles are more dangerous than they were before? And so we need to have MOTs. I mean, why don't we just have MOTs every month then? I mean, technically by law anyway, the MOT is only a reflection of when that vehicle had the test done on that day. As soon as you leave the garage with the car, yes, it has an MOT certificate that lasts for a year. It doesn't mean it's going to be safe, really. It just when it went for, all it means is that when it had its test, it passed the test. What happens to the vehicle once it leaves? Let's say you take, I don't know, you disable the brakes. Obviously, your vehicle's dangerous, but it will still have an MOT certificate for a year. So how is this going to work out? Like, hey. Eight. Cat converter, not muffler. Well, you know what I mean. The smog demon, rolling thunder through the streets. Like the black smog or whatever. I mean, if social economics was really a serious subject matter, I mean, they're talking about the countryside being racist. Too many white people in the countryside. The black people aren't happy about it. It's like, what? There's nothing racist about the countryside. You're just bitter, and there's another sort of can of worms, I suppose. Maybe it's a rant for another day. Because like they want it best. It's like, all right, fine. You want to go to the countryside then? If you want to be happy, go do it then. Like, no one's stopping you. But then maybe this is going to sound racist, but they're not going to be happy because all their buddies aren't going to be there, and they're going to have to travel further. All their creature comforts aren't going to be there, and they're going to be, everywhere they go, they're going to be stepping in sheep shit. This is why they're not in the country. Well, not this is why, but I'm sure they prefer the city environment as a sort of result because of the creature comforts, as it were. I don't know, but the allegation of it just being like people in the countryside are racist, it's just like fucking god damn it. I'm just trying to remember now what other things that I'm hearing from my neck of the woods that I could share with you. So obviously we've got the price rising as per usual. Something I heard that was kind of interesting was that the homes that are being built, population explosion or whatever, all these immigrants coming in, they're going to illegal immigrants. Um, no, I'm not booing at whatever, immigration is immigration kind of thing. But the idea that people of like the homeless are increasing, and these are British homeless people, so government would seem to be more interested in helping in the war in Ukraine, helping um, asylum seekers, than they are trying to help their own people. So we're seeing more and more strikes happening. There was already a teacher strike. There's another 2 teacher strikes planned, I think, for next week, and another sector are planning to be striking. I can't remember. Is it the fire brigade? I think I can't remember. There's another sector. So it's picking up trendy, popularity. This idea of, well, we're just going to strike. Everyone's going to strike. Um, so I'm not sure how sustainable it is in the UK. I don't know, like the forecast. As much as I try to instill some calmness amongst our people, like um, I'm not saying that people are doomsdayers and you're being hyperbolic and all this. It's good to plan for the worst and hope for the best, sort of thing. And I mean, I'm a bit of a prepper as well. Uh, um, you know, this is being responsible. This is being thoughtful to have some foresight and things like this. Um, you know, I, I like to try and I like seeing it being done with sensibility and rationality. Not in hysterical desperation, like we're all gonna die, panic. That's not going to help you or the ones you care for, or the situation. So calmness, even calmness with urgency. That sort of balancing act. Um, it's like be clear minded and pragmatic so that you don't get swept away with your your emotions. You channel your emotions in such a way to give you a drive, to give you a bit of a kick up the backside so that you don't become like you're not procrastinating. um, so a little bit of fear, I suppose, can help motivate you. um, but that kind of drive will help make your situation to secure your sense of security, and then you would feel relief, I suppose, or feel a bit more secure. But even with this, like, try not to panic mentality, it's still um, a bit of an enigma or mysterious as to what is going to be playing out. It's hard to, at least here in the UK, and at least with my particular situation or circumstances, my environment, my local community, it's a bit hard. Like I'm trying to plan out the summer. Um, I try and think, a couple of years ahead, but it's getting a bit harder for me to do. Like maybe I need to sit down a bit and write some things out. Um, but I have no idea what's going to happen after summer. Put it that way. Um, if it's going to be, if like the winter is going to be anything like the winter we're kind of on the tail end of, then I'm not going to be looking forward to that. So this coming winter, I would like to be hopefully having learnt the lessons of my discomfort, which normally, like, I was never really put off by winter in the past. Like, winter was no biggie, but the winter that we're currently going through, the tail end of, I don't know, just I really didn't have a fondness for it. I wasn't. I mean, obviously, I was online chatting with you guys and things like that, but it wasn't a particularly joyous. I was pretty like. I mean, I'm still sitting. I still got candles in front of me, and I don't know if it's the paraffin going up my nose or something like that. But I don't particularly like sitting right in front of a bunch of candles, just burning away my eyebrows. I'm beginning to look like Marilyn Manson over here. You know. And I'm sure paraffin or whatever it is, beeswax. Yeah, there I was talking about brain fog earlier. Um, you know, so I'm going to look forward to when the weather is much more warmer and I'm not going to have candles on. And the potential for fire as well. So I really want to be able to enjoy this summer. With the amount of work I've got planned for the car, maybe I might even catch a suntan. Um, and yeah, so but in terms of the social structure and economics and all the drama and chaos in the world or in England, it's hard to forecast. Right, we got fruit and fresh. Apparently, we're on. I haven't because I haven't had the car for a couple of weeks, so I haven't been to the supermarket. But from what I understand, we're on rations apparently now, like the fresh fruit and other fresh like milk, I suppose, and other fresh kind of items are now there's a shortage. So there's some sort of rationing system. I don't know if that's in my area. I'll find out, I guess, tomorrow. It should be if the car passes. I'm going to be going down to the supermarket and trying to catch up on stock. That's going to be a bit of a bite because it's going to be like, well, we'll see how much it ends up costing. And the cheeky school are trying to bill me for school lunches. And I'm asking my kid, like, because my kid has a packed lunch. I said, "Did you have a school lunch today?" She's like, "No." And did you have one yesterday? No. Have you had one at all? No. And I'm like, I didn't think so. Because you have packed lunch, right? You're eating your packed lunch. Like, well, hardly any of it, but, she's like, yeah, packed lunch. And some of the other parents are being charged as well. So I don't know how it is they're making this boo-boo. But they're trying to threaten me and be like, well, not threaten, but, can you please pay the balance? And I'm just like, no, I ain't doing it. No. I didn't. There are forms you're meant to fill in if you want your kid to have school lunches, and I didn't fill these forms in. They shouldn't be giving her a school lunch. So I'm not going to be paying for their mistake. Screw USA. But it's the sort of the cheeky buggers because it's not the first time they've tried to bill me for school lunches. And to hear that it happens to some of the other parents as well, it's like it just shows you that if you don't speak up or put your foot down or say no, if you let them get away with it, then it'll become an expectation of theirs, and it gives them permission to be entitled to treat you like crap and abuse you and to steal your money. And maybe this is, if we look at responsibility in the grand scheme of things, this is where we would be accountable for allowing these dickwads positions of power is by being gullible or naive or complacent or giving the benefit of doubt or not having the spine to, or the different ways of looking at it, but to be like, hang on, no, this is wrong. No, I don't agree with this. And this outrage is or this speaking up, like, so what it is, I suppose, is when you're kind of blue pilled, or you're a normie, you're a simpoid, you allow people to trample over you. You learn, not only have it's your self-esteem, you don't feel like you deserve to defend yourself, but you start to adopt like learned helplessness behavior. You could be dealing with depression as well, and things like that, anxieties. So trying to fight back in a pragmatic, sensible way, not like red pill raging, but in terms of a point of notice. It needs, unless it's kind of harnessed, not say like cultivated, but unless it's like practiced, to give someone that permission to be authentic, so then they can have confidence and belief in themselves to think better of themselves, to a point where it's like, you know what, no, I do need to say no to this, because not only is it wrong, but it's a disservice to myself. It actually hurts me by not saying anything. So even if I might be a bit scared to speak up, I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to start putting my foot down more assertively. If you're not going to take the hint, and maybe I was being a bit wishful thinking, but hoping that you would read between the lines or read my mind and not try and take advantage of me. But it's clear that if I'm not distinct about it now and put my foot down or put my foot up your backside, then you're going to go through with this. And it's going to get to a point where maybe I'm not going to be able to blame you anymore, because there was a point in time when I could have said no and done something, and I let it slide when that was wrong of me. So seeing that, or knowing that now, having to be more assertive in such instances, I think ties in with this these little social exercises where you put yourself in situations that perhaps that might be seen as unnecessary, but they are necessary, because you are, like, I described it like testing the waters, but it's almost like a testing the waters with yourself, because it's making sure that, like Billy, don't let these people get away with it, and don't let them think that you don't see what's going on. Like, let them see the fire in your eyes. Like, let them see the conviction. And you don't need to be the one that needs to pussyfoot around to cater to their feelings. They're the ones that need to convince you, not the other way around it. You need to convince them. Like, let's get this absolutely clear here. Like, I don't need to be explaining myself, do I? You're the one that needs to make this make sense. Make that make sense. So that layman can understand. Don't be trying to cast your magic spells and send me with your word salad to try and just disorientate me, and I'll just say yes, yes, ma'am, without questioning it, because I'm hoping that I'm going to be lazy in having to decipher what it is you're trying to say. And I'm just going to be conflict avoidant and not try and rock the boat and just go, okay, whatever you say, I support what the current thing. It's going to be a case of, no, no, I can't. I need to know. You need to be clear what it is you're trying to tell me. You need to communicate more efficiently to me, because, like, I've already sacrificed too much of my own integrity to do it anymore. Now, one of us is going to back down here, and it's sure as hell not going to be me. Now, if you can argue convincingly, you have your facts, you have your ducks in a row, then I could be reasonable enough to meet you halfway. But I'm not going to step into your shared delusion just to make you happy at my expense. And I don't know if I've got this, maybe it's this additional pressure with being a dad and a kid who's growing older. Now thinking about secondary schools, now thinking about the years ahead of, well, I'm always thinking about the years ahead of her, but thinking about, it's becoming more, like, playtime is very close to the end. What happens, like my kid is getting to a point of, like, we talk about identity forming at the ages of 2 and 4. Now, obviously, she's coming up to 10. So that kind of milestone is behind her. But these are still critical, crucial years that are going to set her up for the rest of her life. And when I look at the general consensus of what happens to autistic people with their increased mortality rate, their difficulties after leaving school because they don't have qualifications, they're isolated, they'll be lucky if they have the GCSEs, for example, finding a job, etc., having their independence, the support isn't really there for them. And I've heard other people who work in the autism field from the NHS sector, and they're talking about how it's a shambles, how it's lucrative, which is disgusting for me to hear. And a certain individual has left their position, I believe, as a result of the shabbiness of it all. But it doesn't instill me with any faith and confidence. It makes me worried about my daughter's future. And so, yeah, like, maybe it's a combination of these things, but maybe my attitude is getting, maybe it's a branch of, like, a red pill rage in a way, where it's kind of like, look, there's been enough talk. Like, we don't need to go to the ends of the universe with I mean, as fun as it is, we enjoy having our conversations, it's sociable, etc. We have a bit of a laugh, and all the rest of it. But don't forget, there's work to be done. Like, we can't just spend our lives just nattering away and not having anything, like, proof to show, things to show for. Like, you better get on with some stuff, and don't squander the time you have, because not only is she getting older, but I'm getting older, and I'm feeling tired, and the complications with that and the rest of it. I don't, it's hard to forecast. So maybe there's a bit of anxiety, a bit of the drill sergeant in me is beginning to step forward and be like, right, get ready to, like you're like, winter's over now, you're out of hibernation. Right, it's time to open a can of whoop ass. Like, come on, there's work to be done. There's plenty of work to be done. We are only still scratching the surface, really, and we all know that, because as much as we analyze society and the things happening around us, uh, what good is all of that unless we do the real hard work, which is the introspection, and we all know about this, and make the changes within ourselves. So it almost doesn't really matter. We kind of we're a little bit guilty of distracting ourselves with outside events. Um, it's yes, it's good to know, and it's good to have this observation and awareness, um, but we can't let it override our internal needs and wants and desires and etc. Because then we forget ourselves, and that does us some self harm. So we build inside out, and if we have a good strong core structure going on, and we're attentive to it, um, and we treat it with compassion and kindness, and we treat like a flower, we treat ourselves with some good nutrients and water, etc. We grow. It almost doesn't really matter what happens outside around us, because whatever it is, we will have the fortitude and resilience to be able to see it through. Um, and that's why it gets to a point where you can start finding the humorous side of life. Like, I mean, maybe it's a bit uh, sadistic, I suppose, laughing at other people's misfortunes, but it's kind of like, yeah, you did it to yourself. Um, I mean, how else are we supposed to deal with it? You want me to feel sorry for you? How can I feel sorry for you when you don't even uh, you don't even feel sorry for yourself? Really? I mean, yes, you have some self pity, but not the proper kind of uh, where you'd feel sorry enough to do something about it. Not sorry that uh, you want me to play a violin. And oh, by the way, I have been looking at the prices of. No, I shouldn't. I said too much. All right, don't be surprised if next time you hear a little serenade. um, yeah, I'm pretty much done. I've been ranting away. Um, I saw like who is it that popped in here? Like I saw absolute knowledge. I was gonna call you. I was gonna wind you up and mistaken identity. See if I can trigger you, but nah, never mind. Yeah. Oh, I see Tim. Yeah. Uh, well, this is the thing. Like, I think my kid is doing all right with her autism, and it was nice hearing the teacher say some remarks, because it was the first time hearing her teacher talk about some of the. Like, I didn't really think my kid would be classified as high functioning autistic. I thought she was a low functioning autist. Uh, but according to her, she seems to be high functioning, um, which was very pleasing. And it's that kind of it's a funny one. Like, I think in the future we're gonna have a few autism dedicated streams. And Tim, like, maybe you would like to join me on the panel for that or something like this, um, because as much as I like to talk about narcissism and psychology, obviously autism is a very close subject, and I feel a little bit ashamed that I haven't given it the commitment as much as I have with the narcissism. Um, and really, I should put it more in the forefront. Um, and that's not if. Like, no, I will be putting it in the forefront because it's it's like a maybe it was something I was to to savor, like delayed gratification, like. But I think I'm at a point now where I would like to explore into the autism um, much more deeper. What was I gonna say? Oh, the teacher was talking about her being high functioning. Oh, this kind of like a double-edged sword, where she has a very strong concentration, like a one-track mind. So she's on task. When she knows what she's doing, it's obsessive kind of compulsion. Um, but it, but that, so to us, it would look like, hey, this is someone who's very committed, who's very um, in tune, or they've got that clairvoyancy thing. This could be something that a specialist in. So generally would think, hey, this is very good. She's very good with the maths. Um, but it coincides with this anxiety. It shows you like this grip, this obsession, this hyper focus is a way of her self soothing, of blocking out the noisy world, the static, the haywire mess of the crazy world outside, these crazy delusional people, um, and protecting her in this bubble of concentration. So it so it means in a way it's kind of sad because it can mean, I'm not saying it's always the case, but it can mean that this bubble of concentration is a way of preserving her sanity. And so when that bubble, she has to step outside of the bubble, like for whatever reason, timetables or whatever, like, it's time for dinner, or it's time to go out, it's time for school or whatever. Um, when she steps out of this comfort zone, she's in a very stressed environment. She's in the outside world environment of stimulation, and it's too much, you know, and it can, uh, if not too careful, if it could end up causing seizures or epilepsy. At least where they maybe when they're older, it's not so much because they've kind of gotten used to um, having their world flipped upside down and being disorientated and everything else. Um, but it's good to hear that, Tim, that they turn out fine. So I mean, I think, well, this is the problem with the specialist. It's like, regardless of how well the teacher thinks my kid is doing and how well I think my kid is doing, the specialist is like, no, you could do better. We need to sterilize her life and make it according to my plans. It's like, this is her life we're talking about here. It's not your life. So F off with your specialist. Like, all due respect, like, I appreciate the advice you're giving us, but I'm not going to be making my kid follow your regime to make you happy. Like, and here's, like, the specialist doesn't realize it, but I'm a diabetic. I've got my own schedule to follow as well, my own regime. So life isn't as simplistic as this specialist wants to make it out to be. It has nuances. It has interactions with everyone else. I don't want, and I use the word like sterilization, because if you make life so, and I understand that it helps build calmness and a sense of control that my kid can have, because of this one track mind, and I'm assuming she's not very good with things, uh, surprises, springing out, change of plans, and that's a common thing for autistic people in general. I understand it. I don't like surprises either. Um, But life isn't like that, you know. Um, so it's a tricky one. I just hope there's a bit of a balance. I mean, yeah. So, but then the parental side of me, like, as much as I might want to uh, give her a pat on the back for her achievements, I am proud of what she has gone through, how her personality has taken shape, her achievements, her charisma, her humor. She's funny as hell. You know, she's a great kid. Um, I love her to the stars and beyond, and all that sort of stuff. Um, I just have that. It's just parental anxiety, I suppose. Ah, one, yeah. Thank you, Tim, in advance. I'm not sure when we'll arrange it. Maybe we can chat at some point about it. I was talking about my baby's mama earlier. Was I? I was saying about her. Can't remember. Okay, so I've had a good ramble with you, and I really appreciate you all um, being here and hearing me waffle on. You know, you didn't have to, obviously. So many thanks to that, and the time you share. Now, Kush is going to be streaming, I think, in just under 20 minutes. If you guys are still about, you know, jump over to his stream. I think he's doing a financial stream, very important, um, as as all of his streams are really. You know how Kush is. He's hard as nails. He he's giving it to you raw. That's that's knuckle pounding. That's not me beating the meat. That's giving you a little uh, thumping the chrome dome. Not that kind of dome. Whatever. So uh, I'm gonna scoot off. Busy day tomorrow. So thank you again for coming here. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Um, I don't know. Do what you need to do. Like, comment, subscribe. It sounds a bit corny. Not really my sort of handle to be saying. Um, and I'll report back when I report back. I think I'll be visiting those short stories. I've got one bookmarked here. The Husband of the Rat's Daughter. Uh, Maybe you might have heard that one before. Um, yeah, a little bit of story time. And maybe an update, like a car video update with knickknacks and paddywhacks. Give the dog a bone. So until then, be excellent to one another, and I'll see you all soon. Cheerio.